Hi, welcome to the show. I've been meaning to do an episode focused on answering some of the questions I get from listeners and people that I work with as a consultant. Well, today's the day. I'm here to do just that. I'm Kate Mason and welcome to Parenting and Personalities. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones that you care about the most. So, stick with me, because these might be relationship issues that you've experienced or are dealing with right now. So let's go to it and find some answers together. Now, my first question is from Julia, and she asks, Kate, my partner and I have been together for 18 months, but lately it feels like we're just arguing and putting each other down instead of growing closer. Our relationship started off well, but I'm not sure where things went off track. I recently listened to your podcast about understanding each other through personalities and love languages. Could you offer some guidance on where we might begin to improve our relationship? Julia. Well, Julia, it sounds like you're facing some challenges in your relationship, but it's really great that you're seeking out ways to improve things, because I want you to know that this is not uncommon. Many of us go through this, and many of us still are. So what happens is, after that initial rush of first love fades, many of us enter this new phase of our romantic journey. During that exhilarating first part of our journey, the desire to please can often lead to individuals overlooking their true values, resulting in a temporary loss of their authentic selves. Have you ever experienced this? In those phases of first love where you want to do everything for the other person, even though it's not really you? So as comfort and ease grows into the relationships, we typically revert back to our core personalities and behaviour. All of a sudden, you can present to your partner as someone they literally don't know. So what happened to the woman who, when you first met, loved a good horror movie, who ate popcorn and chocolate, who cooked amazing meals, who woke up early in the morning to kiss them goodbye, and occasionally loved the excitement of sex in the backseat of the car? Where did they go? Suddenly there's a stranger who loves to sleep in, hates horror movies, much prefers a chick flick, says, find your own dinner, I don't have time, and has reverted to a food cop who doesn't eat sugars or fats, and says, don't bother me about sex until I'm in the mood. And vice versa. The guy who showered you with flowers and gifts, who paid for dinner every time, who offered you his jacket when you were cold, who watched rom-coms with you, got up to make coffee or find some snacks for you. He seems to have disappeared with his hairline. Suddenly you say, what happened to the flowers? They say, just too expensive. You now have to split the bill every time you go out to dinner. If you're cold, he says, well, you should have brought a jacket. And if you want a coffee, make it yourself. And then he asks if you can make one for him as well. Now, for some people, they just glide through this phase with ease. But for others, it can be confronting and sad, or it could be the end of what could possibly be a great relationship. Now, keep in mind, this is a very natural human process in Now keep in mind, this is a very natural human process in romantic relationships, so please don't give up now. There is hope. You've just finished one phase of relationship and you're preparing for the next. So with a few good hinters and things to do, I think you can do this. Maybe you'll get it right on the next phase. So here are a few key areas to explore that could help you both reconnect. Is this you? Have you been here? Are you still here? Have you been in this situation many, many times at the beginning of a relationship? Well, maybe you'll be able to find your way onto the next phase in your next relationships. Or do you know someone who is and might need help? There are 3 innate personality and behavioural tools that I use every day in my life to understand my husband and kids. And yes, I'm 38 years married, and believe me, I'm not saying that we don't argue. We argue all the time. But you know what? We know who we're arguing with. We know how each of us reach solutions. We understand what's hurtful and not to say, and we understand how to solve the problems. And we know how to make up. So using these will help you learn about yourself and your partner and fosters a balance and an understanding of each other. So let's take a look at my first one, which is the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Understanding you and your partner's MBTI types can provide insight into how you both perceive the world and make decisions. Now, this knowledge can help you navigate differences and really build your communication. Each personality type has different ways of processing information, and that's about making decisions and also about expressing your emotions. So let's just take a quick look at the 4 MBTI preferences. Now, as I always say, we can use all of the following preferences, but there's usually one of them that we prefer to use the most. So let's take a look at the first one, extroversion and introversion. Extroversion is the energy directed outwards. So extroverts enjoy social interaction, they seek stimulation, and they prefer a breadth of different experiences. Introversion is energy directed inward. Now, these people enjoy solitude, but they don't want to be alone all the time. They focus on inner thoughts and ideas, and they prefer a depth of experience. So take a think about you and your partner. What do you think that you might be? What are your sore points? For instance, if one of you has a preference for introversion, they might need more personal space to recharge, while an extrovert might seek more social interaction. The second preference, sensing and intuition. Now, sensing people focus on concrete information that's obtained through their senses. They're often practical and detail-orientated, and they prefer facts and data. Intuitives focus on patterns and connections and possibilities. They're imaginative, future-orientated, and they prefer concepts and theories. Both approaches offer valuable insights. Sensing types help to ground ideas into reality, while intuitive types bring creativity and vision. However, in a relationship, if you don't recognize these 2 different types, then you might find that one of you is very grounded and the other one just appears floaty, full of good ideas but never bringing anything into fruition. It can be very frustrating for both of you. So start recognizing these complementary strengths in order to balance your relationship. If you don't understand these differences, you're not going to be on the same page. The third is thinking and feeling. Now, thinking people make decisions based on logic and objective criteria. They value fairness and consistency, and they prioritize truth over tact, which can often be to their detriment because they can come across as critical and questioning and unkind. Feeling people make decisions based around their personal values and empathy. They value harmony in relationships, and they prioritize tact and empathy over objective criteria. However, they can come across to thinking types as sappy, over-emotional, and subjective. Do you recognize this in your relationship? Is one of you a thinking type and the other a feeling? Or are you both thinking types? Imagine what this does to your conversations and how it might be to the detriment of them. Then we have the fourth, judging and perceiving. Now, judging types prefer structure and order. They're decisive, organised, and they like closure. They plan ahead, and they really value deadlines. Whereas the perceiving types prefer flexibility and spontaneity. They're adaptable, open-minded, and they really like to keep their options open. They prefer to explore possibilities rather than commit to decisions prematurely. Believe me, this last part plays a huge part in your relationship as you both settle into living with each other. So how do you like your dishes done, your house cleaned, your clothes organised? Do those 3 crumbs on the counter mean anything to you? Or are they really, really important? Think about it. How different or alike are you to your partner? Does this impact how you get along on a daily basis? Do you frustrate each other over the little things that you do or you don't do? Recognizing these 4 preferences and finding your MBTI personality type can foster empathy and really reduce misunderstandings. So consider taking the MBTI assessment together with me, and we can discuss your results to identify potential areas of conflict and collaboration. Next, let's talk about temperament. Now, temperament was the beginning of my personality journey. I love it because temperament talks about your behaviours. Now, this framework categorises people into 4 main temperaments: sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. Temperament talks about your behaviours. The framework categorises people into 4 different temperaments: sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. Now, each temperament has its own strengths and challenges. For example, sanguines are often social and enthusiastic, but they can also lack detail and just spend their time being busy, talking to too many people. Melancholics are often more reflective and detail-oriented, but they do risk being perfectionists and they don't like any disorder in their life. Cholerics are often seen as assertive, ambitious, and goal-oriented. However, they can also be seen as bossy, pushy, and impatient. Phlegmatics are typically calm, easygoing, and supportive, but they are also people who find it hard to make decisions, like to sit on the fence, and don't get stuff done. Now, you might be a blend of 2 or 3 of these temperaments, or solely one. My husband and I were solely 2 different temperaments. I was a sanguine and he was a choleric. Now, we were fighting all the time until we discovered the temperaments, and I was 26 at the time. I'm now 62. I have used them every single day of my life to help balance relationships, help my friends and family balance theirs, because understanding temperaments was a light bulb moment for our relationship, and it literally saved our marriage. So it's a really simple personality tool. If you have a look online, you'll find under Personality Plus, Florence Littau, and you'll find a questionnaire that you can complete if you'd like to do it. Is this stuff worth it? It sure is. Understanding you and your partner's temperament can shed light on how your behaviours affect each other and your interactions. And believe me, it will save relationships not only with your partner, but with your kids too. Finally, let's look at exploring your love languages, because this can significantly impact how you connect too. The 5 love languages, words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch, highlight on the different ways people give and receive love. Now, it's really common for partners to have different love languages, leading to feelings of neglect and frustration if those needs aren't met. Because most of the time, we're giving our love language to the other person, not necessarily their love language. For instance, my husband and I, we're acts of service, and we've spent our life, as parents do in general, giving acts of service to our kids. Now, we expect acts of service back, but it wasn't until I looked at love languages and realised that actually we were never going to get it unless we discussed it with our children. Because my daughter is gifts and my son is quality time. So we weren't giving their love, we were only giving ours. So we swapped our love languages. We sat down and had a chat with them, told them what we were and understood what they were. And so whenever we're in a bit of a scenario where we're not misunderstanding each other, if we go back to love languages and serve that back to each other, then we're in a much better place and we all feel loved. So take your time to discuss your love languages and find ways to express love that might resonate for someone, not for you, but for someone else, because their love language might be totally different. Perhaps choose one out of these 3 things that are suggested today, because sometimes it's too overwhelming to start on everything. And make a choice with your partner about which ones you'd like to look at first, to start your journey of self-understanding. Then consider some time to set aside for each other to check in and discuss what's working and what isn't, and how you can support each other better. With these tools, you will start to reconnect and you'll strengthen your bond with your partner and with anyone that you love. Wishing you all the very best on this journey, and contact me if you need me. My second question comes from Anita. Hi Kate, we're currently in exam season and my teenager, who's in his last year of school, is really struggling to get his work done on time. When I ask him to complete it, he often doesn't follow through, which is causing me a lot of stress. Now I know how important these studies are for his chances to get into university. What can I do to help him stay on track? Hi Anita, it sounds like you're in a tough situation. Honestly, teenagers and study don't often fit very well in the same sentence. However, there are lots of strategies that you can explore to help your teenager stay on track with his studies. For me, The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator gave me so many different ways to encourage my children to do their homework in their most preferred style. Now, first of all, you and he both need to understand his MBTI type, because this can provide insights into his natural learning preferences. For instance, if he has a preference for extroversion, he might benefit from group study sessions or discussing with peers. Because I know, as an extrovert, that sorting out ideas verbally helps me to gather cohesion and understanding for my written work, for my study and ideas. If he leans towards introversion, he might prefer quiet individual study time. This is my son Jack. He will lock himself away in order to concentrate and complete work. Different styles, but they work for both of us. Similarly, if your son's a sensing type, he might thrive on concrete and hands-on tasks. However, if he's intuitive, he might enjoy exploring concepts and ideas more abstractly. Regarding his judging and perceiving preference, a judging teen might prefer structured routines and clear deadlines, whereas a perceiving teen might feel more comfortable with flexibility and spontaneity. These are really important for understanding the timeframes that your teenager will work in and how he'll get his assignments in on time or maybe slightly late. If your son understands his own MBTI type, he can understand his own study skill set and what work style works best for him. So you could encourage him to set his own deadlines or study in a way that feels less restrictive and right for him. In all of this, it's really important for you to consider your own MBTI type as a parent and how that might shape your expectations of study. Because believe me, it shapes everyone's to a huge extent. For example, if you're a parent with a judging preference, you might emphasize that importance of deadlines and structured study habits and consistent study, while those with a perceiving preference might be more relaxed around schedules and encourage a more fluid approach. If you're an extrovert, you might naturally expect your teen to engage in group study methods, whereas an introverted parent might value the independent study. And finally, remember that teenage brain is still developing, particularly in areas responsible for impulse control and decision-making. And this might mean that he'll struggle with prioritizing tasks and managing his time effectively, no matter what. He might just have a teen brain. Helping him establish a consistent study routine, if he hasn't already, will be a great idea. One thing I want to point out here, from personal experience, is that if you are a judging type parent with a judging type child, don't load your child up with your expectations as well as his. He's going to need your support because he already has his own expectations sitting in the background. And if you load him up with yours, then you're likely to have a very overwhelmed, overworked child who possibly might burn out. The other things that I've learned over the years is that open communication is key. Talk with your teenager about type and temperament. Educate them. They're very often receptive to these ideas, even if they might not be quite sure about what type or temperament they are. It gives them guidelines to differences between themselves and you as a parent and their friends. This knowledge might give your son the chance to understand what study methods work best for him and be willing to work it based on his own personality. By approaching this situation with empathy and support and considering both his learning style and your expectations, you can work together to find solutions that resonate with both of you. And last of all, as a parent in training, which I still am, this is my greatest learning of my 62 years. Ask questions and then listen, and listen again. Do not tell. Do not lecture. Do not solve his problems. Listen to him solve his own. Have conversations about his interests and motivations and try to understand what might be causing his reluctance to complete his homework. If you approach this situation with empathy and support, then you can work together to find the solutions that will resonate with his own unique learning style and developmental stage. Take the pressure off yourself and him and learn about who you are. Julia and Nita, thank you so much for your thoughtful questions today. If you'd like to learn more or have any additional inquiries, feel free to reach out to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. I'd be happy to assist. For a deeper look into these relationship tools, explore my earlier episodes. If you're ready to take the next step, visit my website to book a personalised session with me. I can't wait to work with you. Thanks for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave a rating and a review that would help others learn about this podcast. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to the Personality Coach. Thanks to the producers at Stories and Strategies, and we'll see you next time.